So I went over some of the updates about the Uvalde shooting, including responses from the right. Now I want to take a look at just a couple more responses before we close the night out. So the crew from Morning Joe had this to say about Texas gun laws and the, let's say, GOP model for the insanely ease of access to firearms.
We just raised the age of purchasing cigarettes, for God's sakes, to 21. The age of buying alcohol is 21. I think the age to buy a gun should be 21. And people can come to me with all the caveats about, well, they can serve in the military. I'll say the same thing about drinking beer, by the way, between the age of 18 and 21. But I want to remind people that in the military, you have access to weapons, but the military deeply and intensely controls when you can have that weapon, when you can carry it, and when you can have ammo. You don't get to take it home and put it on your pillow. So that's really important for people to realize.
That seems like it should just be a no-brainer, right? Just an easy win. But alas, that sweet, sweet NRA money. So this I thought was kind of interesting. Mike the Mad Dog Russo is an ESPN host and a host of a sports talk radio show on SiriusXM. Honestly, I've never heard of the guy before because I don't follow sports, but yeah. So, you know, I can't speak of how often these kinds of shows discuss politics or events outside of the world of sports. But because of the seriousness of this story in Texas, I mean, it's definitely ripe for crosstalk. It clearly affects everyone. It's kind of like how Donald Trump, you know, he was pro-choice his whole life until he decided he wanted to run for president. Then he came up with this elaborate story about how he met a kid that he liked and decided it would be awful if the mother would have gotten an abortion. School shootings should, you know, also be a no-brainer. If you have kids, or if you know kids, or if you know about kids, or you recognize the existence of children, or if you've ever heard someone else speaking about children, or possibly read about it in a book at some point in your life. I mean, this is an issue that should affect you. But let's take a look.
It's about the Republicans in that Senate who are wrapped up with the NRA and all the gun lobbyists and everything else who are afraid. There's 310 million guns in America for 300 million people, who are afraid that if they get tough here, that somehow they're going to get knocked out of office because their states love guns. Love guns. Do you think everybody brings up the Second Amendment. What do you think George Washington, Sam Adams, Jefferson, Ben Franklin, what do you think they're thinking about right now? You think they thought this? There was no police. There was no state militia back in 1780 when they did the state's Second Amendment. It's not the same thing. This is totally different today. I mean, it's ridiculous. You're going to bring up the Second Amendment, well, I have my right to have guns, and you're going to bring up something that was passed in 1780 and say that applies to today? That is absolutely absurd. And the other thing, Abbott, the governor, and again, I play it right down the middle. Cruz, that senator, and how about the representatives of that community that were in West San Antonio and West Texas? They all voted no on gun control deals in March. They voted no on it. And then Adam yesterday gives me this big deal about how we're heartbroken. Well, you had a chance to do something about it, you did nothing. And where are they going on Friday, half of them? To an NAR convention in Houston, Texas, for crying out loud. Houston, Texas. It's absolutely absurd. America, shape up, wake up, and do something. I don't care what it is, and yes, there are a million reasons why we have all these 18-year-old kids who feel disconnected and feel like they got to go out there and blow up a supermarket, a school, a movie theater in Colorado with armor on. They're disconnected. But I can't look at every computer. I can't look at every social media post. I can't look at every Instagram thing to see what these kids are thinking about. But what I can do, I can limit their ability to obtain weapons. That I can do. And I understand that gun companies in this country don't want that, because they make a ton of money when they sell these assault weapons. So that company that stored Dick's Sporting Goods, wherever it was, in Texas, when they sold those 2 assault weapons to this kid a couple of weeks ago, you think they care? No, they don't. They don't care. They say they can, but they don't because they do nothing about it. And listen, I live 20 minutes from Sandy Hook. I was there 5 days later. That is an absolute disgrace that in 9 years we have done nothing.
Yo, I like that guy. I don't know. Again, I'd never heard of the guy before. Not familiar with his work, but so far I'm kind of digging it. Kind of reminds me a little. Well, I won't tell you what it reminds me of, but there you go. So, I mean, there you go. Hard to follow that up. So it's been reported that the Uvalde shooter was bullied and that he was a victim of bullying, but one fellow high school student offers a different take. Let's take a look here.
Salvador Ramos was a boy who was not bullied. He would try to pick on people but fail, and it would aggravate him. I would like to get that out of the way. He was not bullied. He, prior, and I don't see this covered, and I'm going to put this out there, he would hurt animals. He was not a good person. He would go to the parks and try to pick fights.
Jeez. Next, we have White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre with her reaction, or with a reaction to Uvalde.
On Tuesday, as you all know, the parents of 19 kids did what so many of us parents do every morning. They gave their kids a kiss, told them they loved them, and wished them a good day at school. They figured their kids would spend their day reading, writing, doing math, playing with friends at recess. These kids never came home. Some of these parents needed to give DNA samples to be able to identify their own children. These were elementary school kids. They should be losing their first teeth, not losing their lives.
Yeah, and from what it sounds, I mean, my God, I mean, think about that here, folks. If they had to use DNA to, that means that they're what was left. She's talking about losing their teeth and losing their lives. They had to have the DNA test because they was losing pieces. I mean, I'm just being real. Ted Cruz talk about, he's been to the place, he's seen the gore, he's seen things that, well, go in and see that, And again, based on what we discussed earlier about those law enforcement on the scene, yo.
The average age of suspects at school mass shootings is 18. Would the president support raising the age at which someone can buy a gun to 21?
So the president was very clear about this just recently when he said that in his remarks just on Tuesday that it doesn't make sense for an 18-year-old to legally buy an assault weapon. And so he made very clear on Tuesday after he landed from Asia and had to deal with such a devastating news that happened in Texas. America has more guns than people in this country. If more guns were indeed the solution, we would be the safest country in the world, but we are not. And so the president has been very clear. He wants action. He wants Congress to take action. He wants to turn this pain into action. And I hope the Senate, and particularly those who have been unwilling to act in the face of previous tragedies, will act now. And that's what we are hoping and urging Congress to do.
And I mean, at this point, that's an interesting take. So we have literally tried nothing. Nothing. We've tried nothing. What we've tried is we've made it easier for anyone to get guns. We've made it easier in some states for access to firearms to be available to anyone. I mean, Texas is a great example of what we've done. So if the good guys with the guns, argument held any sort of water, we did that. What more can you do? And keep in mind, this is the folks who are opposed to any sort of regular background checks. Folks like Ted Cruz, who are literally taking millions of dollars from these gun lobbyists, who are opposed to just background checks, just basic background checks. Okay, these are the same people who make the argument. Now you've heard it with your own 2 ears, that if we pass regulation on firearms, that's not going to stop guns from getting in the hands of criminals. Well, that logic goes out the window when it comes to abortion. That logic goes out the window when it comes to marijuana, or shit, I'll go there, any sort of illegal substances. That logic goes right out the window. Criminalize, would make it illegal, throw them in prison, but when it comes to guns, that is the one thing that Republicans refuse. Just refuse. Yeah, if you're a Second Amendment supporter, and that means in your tiny little squirrel nut head that everyone should have access to firearms at whatever level, or people without a criminal background yet should have access to firearms as the laws are written in Texas. If you're perfectly fine with the laws in Texas, you don't get to say a damn thing about abortions, okay? They're either going to happen or they're not. I mean, every single one of those lawmakers, in the state of Texas who is pushing for any sort of anti-abortion, anti-drug, anti-immigration, anti-anything legislation, well, I think I've said enough naughty words this week, but you know exactly what you can do with yourself because you're a lying hypocrite. It's a trash argument. You're a garbage person would make it. Rant over. Last, we'll take a look at what some on the right are calling, virtue signaling by Texas gubernatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke. Virtue signaling. He's donating blood for shooting victims, and they're calling it virtue signaling. Virtue signaling. Okay. Suspenseful video, I know. But again, they're calling it virtue signaling, while he actually is, though. I mean, he actually is donating blood for shooting victims. Meanwhile, I'm not sure exactly where Greg Abbott was today, or what the right is calling whatever it is that he's doing. I mean, honestly, he's probably preparing a speech for tomorrow night at the gunless NRA meeting with Ted Cruz and that wretched, disgusting South Dakota governor whose name escapes me faster than her pinned tweets escape the rest of you. But that's beside the point. So here comes the view.
2 fourth grade teachers.
Yeah.
They were yelling at him. I'd like to see some of that energy around gun safety.
Yeah.
Were we late on that?
They seemed angrier at Beto O'Rourke than they were at the massacre of 19 children and 2 fourth grade teachers.
Yeah.
They were yelling at him. I'd like to see some of that energy around gun safety.
Yeah.
I was so shocked that they were so angry at what he was saying, and he was saying the right things. It was totally predictable. I mean, Governor Abbott was the person that changed the age of owning a gun from 21 to 18. They seem...
Right. So, in conclusion, look, the writing is on the wall, folks. At least the writing is on the TV. If someone says that they're pro-gun, but they're also anti-abortion. Make the argument for them. Make the argument that if you criminalize guns, then criminals will be the only ones with guns. So if you ban abortions, what in your tiny little walnut-sized brain would make you think that abortions won't still happen and become more dangerous for the people getting them? If you criminalize drugs, even though they're not real crime, you still end up with criminals, and we have a cartel border problem with crime and blah, blah, blah. Make the argument about back the blue, right? If you're going to back the blue, you would only back the blue because it's a dangerous job and we need law enforcement to protect and to serve. But if they're not going to protect and serve, then what the fuck are they out there doing, you bunch of cowards? And if you're one of these cowards who supports these cowards, regardless of what they're doing, whether they're in Lawton, Oklahoma, shooting unarmed black people holding fucking hats for no reason at all, or if they refuse to go in and, you know, put themselves between an active shooter and fucking babies, then, you know, like, call them out on it. Just call them out on it. Tell them the way it is. Tell them the way it is, because we have an election coming up, and it's a chainsaw. You're supposed to be political. You know, how dare the left politicize something that the right has been politicizing every single day from the last mass shooting until this one, and then all of a sudden, out of the fucking blue. Okay, I don't know when this NRA meeting was scheduled, but you know, with a bunch of governors and a bunch of senators and Dan Crenshaw and da-da-da, I don't know when it was scheduled, but I tell you what. There was no mass shooting when it was scheduled, probably. I don't know that. Look it up yourself. Call somebody. Call the NRA and ask them, hey, was there a mass shooting when you guys decided to have a bunch of executives and legislators, you know, from state, local, and you know, the former president of the United States, when you decided to book them at this annual meeting? Was there a mass shooting going on at that exact time when you decided that this was, you know, and if not, ask them, well, how come you're politicizing firearms? You know, so yeah, it's a thing. So yeah, it's perfectly fine to politicize something that's been politicized before it happened and will be politicized after the fact, and will be politicized every single day after the fact as the world turns. It just is what it is, folks. It is what it is. But listen, we got an election coming up, just a few short months, and literally your freedom is riding on the results. So put that in your crack pipe and smoke it. Listen, if you follow me on Twitter, I love you. I say that at least twice a week. If you're subscribed to my YouTube channel and you're watching any of this, I tell you I love you at least twice a day, right? Monday through Friday. Listen, I'm not going to be here for the weekend, but we will still have tomorrow's show scheduled and ready for you for when the time comes. So, and I'm going to try and get something out for Monday. I'm, of course, going to be gone. Got a big event coming up. It's going to be crazy. Going to be in good old Branson, Missouri. So come check me out. And yeah, if you haven't had a chance to check out the Patreon yet, there's not a whole lot there, but that's because I need your support. This is an independent progressive media program that's broadcast from a independent progressive media studio in the foothills and wilderness of the Ozarks. You know, so the budget is what the budget is, folks, and we are 100% dependent on viewers like you. So feel free and support us on Patreon at patreon.com/chainsawccc if you want to see the show continue to grow, and best of luck to you. We'll catch you on the flippity fling flong. Rock and roll. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate the people who are following me on Twitter at ChainsawCCC. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I am very interested to hear your thoughts on these and other issues. If you enjoy what we're doing here in rural Missouri and want to support independent progressive media from the hills and wilderness of the Ozarks, consider going to patreon.com/chainsawccc and becoming a Patreon supporter. You can support independent media for as little as $3 per month. That's half the cost of a loaded tea per month. Thank you again, and we'll catch you on the flippity fling flong. Rock and roll.